Welcome to a special edition of the Capital Gains Tax Solutions and Expert CRE Secrets podcast, where we believe most high net worth individuals and those who help them, they struggle with clarifying their capital gains tax deferral options. Not having a clear plan is the enemy, and using a proven tax deferral strategy such as the Deferred Sales Trust is the best way for you to exit your highly appreciated business or real estate. And or for the Expert CRE Secrets podcast, we're trying to give you great tools as commercial real estate owners and or brokers to grow your business. And I'm excited to have our next guest on. By the way, I'm your host, Brett Swarts. In each episode, I'm joined by some amazing guests that are experts in real estate, experts in business, experts sometimes in data and understanding how to find property owners so you can help them out. So I'm excited to welcome to the show with me, Sean O'Toole. Sean, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Excellent. And Sean, by the way, is, I believe, the founder of Property Radar. And their whole purpose is helping you discover opportunity in property and owner data. And I'm going to have him tell his full story. But this episode, we're going to be focusing on automating and integrating property and owner data. So Sean, take it away. Give us a little bit more about your story and your current focus.
So I was a 3-time startup guy in Silicon Valley in the 90s. And after the dot-com crash, ended up flipping houses and commercial property. Over 160 flips, ranging from small houses to 30,000 square foot industrial to a Taco Bell to all kinds of stuff. And then just before the foreclosure crisis, launched the first version of this company, which we called Foreclosure Radar. And we were in the right place, right time for the foreclosure crisis. And then as the foreclosure crisis wound down, we expanded to cover all properties rather than just those in foreclosure.
Excellent. So amazing. So that's part of that crash. By the way, I'm from Sacramento, originally from
Oh,
Mission San Jose, Fremont. Spent the time there in the Silicon Valley. Dad growing up, custom homes, room additions in the 80s. And so we've seen the boom and the bust a bit. And it's such an interesting place to grow up and to see the rapid change in technology and systems and processes, as well as being on the commercial real estate background and seeing that kind of shift. So, but before we go into all of that, there's so much to cover. And I'm really excited about all of the meat we're going to be able to take off the bone here for this interview. I want to take one other step back, Sean. I want you to go back perhaps before it could be the university days or even growing up. I want you to picture that moment of time. And I want you to think about perhaps maybe a gift or two that you believe you were given. I believe we've all been given certain gifts in this life. Some people call them strengths. Some people call them superpowers. I believe they're God-given gifts. And I believe these gifts are being given to us to be a blessing of help to others. So I'm curious, maybe what are those one or two gifts that you believe you were given? And how does that help how you help people today?
yeah. There was just one period that made the biggest difference for me. My parents bought a computer when I was 10 to help run their business, their home business. And basically after they were done at 5, I got to jump on and start playing with it. Taught myself to program, ended up writing software professionally by 14, was selling computers by 16 and writing software, and started my first software company as 18. And, that gift at 10 years old of getting access to a computer, at least back in 1978, was a huge game changer. Just such a big, it was a little later than Bill Gates and some others, but it was back in that time frame. It was just incredible. And my son's now 18, a freshman in college. And boy, from the time he was 0 to 10, I spent an incredible amount of time thinking about what do I do for him that gives him those same opportunities for the rest of his life.
Amazing. And by the way, I think I have the wrong one on there. You can learn more about Sean O'Toole at propertyradar.com. And I still remember my dad bringing in the first Apple computer, and he had one of the initial ones, and we're in Fremont, right? And so
Yeah.
he was in construction and real estate and stuff, but he brought it in. I remember looking at this thing and just playing with it as a young kid too. Never got into the coding or anything like that.
Yeah.
So what part of I'm curious too with your kids if they've taken after you or not, but what part of your personality or your strengths really was able to excel at the coding?
My dad's was a logic and philosophy professor, and I was good at math. So math plus logic plus computer was just like kind of a perfect world for me. So I really just kind of instantly grokked it. And, as you remember when, it was, that late 1970s, those first Apple IIs that folks started to show up with, there wasn't a lot to do. Like, it was a flashing cursor just waiting for something. And you really had to, it took a while for there to be any games or really any, and even those were terrible. So, programming the thing was kind of the thing. And for whatever reason, I dug in.
Yeah, that's really neat. I love that. Math plus logic plus the computer. It was like it was your language to speak, and your dad to help you teach and inspire that, and to let you go loose on the computer. Love that. Okay, so now let's dive right into how you help people now with PropertyRadar.com. And before you, but I want to know this: what's the most rewarding part of what you do? And then really simply, what is Property Radar?
Yeah. So the most rewarding part of what we do is, over the years, we have helped thousands of folks. I talk about Richard. Richard was kind of wiped out in the dot-com crash. He was at retirement age, and was really kind of lost, and found our software and Foreclosure Radar. And we basically taught him how to flip foreclosures, and he used our software to find those deals. And definitely a few years of hard work, but I got a really nice note from him, probably 2012, basically saying, that he was so depressed in 2008 after the crash, and really he thought he was going to have to spend the rest of his life working. And, he said, basically, thanks to you, not only have I replaced all of the money I lost in the crash, but I've expanded on it. And I now have, I don't remember what it was, something like 20 rentals. And I am far better set than I was. And I never would have done that if the crash hadn't happened and if we hadn't found your product. So, and we have lots of those stories, and those are the ones that really keep me going. There's a lot of people selling public records data, which is essentially what we do, to big business. Home Depot knows when you take out a home equity line of credit and they start hitting you up for the barbecues and the home remodel projects, but your small local folks don't. And if you're at a large commercial brokerage and you have access to CoStar, that's awesome, super expensive. But if you're a smaller broker or whatever, or that's just a lot of money for you, we give you access to the majority of the same data for a tiny fraction of the cost. And so helping those small businesses compete in a world that's increasingly owned by big business is definitely what gets me up in the morning.
Amazing. Absolutely. Unlocking basically the next chapter for one of your customers, Richard, right, of his life, where he went from 2008, not sure what's going to happen, losing the job, to shifting and pivoting to buying rentals. And not only is he replaced, what he lost, but now he's far ahead of what he was before. For him, it's definitely one of those blessings in disguise. But he's using your software on a daily basis to unlock pre-foreclosures, unlock opportunities, find deals. Is that a fair summary there?
Yeah, he was buying at the foreclosure auctions versus pre-foreclosures, but yeah, absolutely right.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. So
we have plenty of pre-foreclosures and plenty that buy other off-market deals, and plenty doing commercial. So, there's a lot. Mortgage folks looking for, folks who want to refi or et cetera. So, or eliminate PMI. So there's a whole bunch of use cases. Public records is just this really fertile ground that most people don't realize. And if you're in the real estate business, you're so blessed because public records let you know every potential customer by name and use hundreds of criteria to focus your marketing efforts on the ones most likely to do business with you.
Perfect. So actually, I want to try to do some hands-on. If you're ready for some hands-on,
Sure.
imagine, because I'm not a property radar customer, and I want to talk about automating and integrating this type of data, because I am a commercial real estate broker, multifamily broker here in Sacramento, and I
Yeah.
started at Marcus and Millichap, and we were constantly trying to build a database, Excel files, CRMs, search for LLCs, trying to do all of those things, especially in the old age in 2006,
Yeah.
very manual. And of course, then CoStar helps to aggregate sentence. And you're right, I also have CoStar, and it's
Yep.
expensive. So I'm maybe your ideal client as well. Capital gains tax solutions, we're also sourcing and trying to help people who have highly appreciated primary homes, right? Because of the deferred sales trust, we're able to defer capital gains taxes, not using a 1031 on the sale of a primary home. And so we're
Yep.
constantly trying to find out where we can target best. So walk me through that. How do I integrate your property radar and then automate all of that together? Does that make sense?
Yeah, and we could actually start with the highly appreciated homes, right? So that one, the data on homes, there's a couple of places where it's going to be better in our system. We have good estimated values on homes, whereas estimated values on commercial properties are very difficult without rental data. And that would be a difference between us and CoStar. We're not trying to go and figure out the leases on a property, right? We're going to have the core public records, but not the lease data. So not very good valuations on commercial properties, but good valuations on residential properties. On all properties, we do a pretty good job of going through and figuring out what the current debt is on the property. So really easy to say, find me properties that have, a value of Y and this much equity, right? Those highly appreciated properties where the folks have a lot of equity, where they might want to learn about the kind of options that you have, because maybe they want to take some of that equity and redeploy it without having to pay out taxes, right? And I am personally in that situation where my house has gone up a tremendous amount. My kids are off to college, and I'd be willing to downsize, but no way I'm going to downsize and pay the tax bill, right? So I'd be a perfect example of that. So super easy to set that criteria up in whatever area you want to market to, and find those highly appreciated assets, find the equity, and then make a list. Now you can either make that list kind of one time and export it, right? Not very automated. And one of the things we do that's more unique, though, is once you set that criteria up, anytime something new matches your criteria, we can automatically send it to your CRM, to your marketing automation system, to whatever else it is you have. If you want, you can just get a mobile notification on your phone, right? Click through the property details and call the owner, right? Because we do pull in phones and email addresses too for most owners.
Wow. Okay. So that's much simpler than I even thought, right? So you just, for example, we just did an $8.3 million deal in Palo Alto, and
Yeah.
he had owned the property for 20 plus years, and he had a huge gain above and beyond his 121 exclusion. And exactly, he wasn't going to sell until he found this. And so then he found it, and he's like, oh my gosh, I've been in the business for 30 years. And he's actually a top realtor as well with KW. And he's like, this is remarkable. And he goes, you should be telling everybody. I'm like, yeah. And I've got, now the next layer is we got it. Now we got to dive in to target the marketing, right? And so you set the criteria. We say,
yeah, so you say owned more than 10 years, more than say $4 million, $3 million in equity, whatever it is. You could actually make that list for all of California, or, potentially, we do require you do one state at a time, because doing these criteria across all 150, it just takes too long. And so, but you can do it, in 10 states or one state, whatever you want. And then you can set up that integration to automatically push those into your CRM or whatever. So
that's the power right there, I want to say, right? Because we can set it and forget it, and it goes into the CRM, and then from the CRM, I guess you could tag it and say, here's a tag for a high-end primary home. And that tags an automation sequence of, could it be a mailer, a direct mail? Could it be if you have
voicemail drop
on there or not? Or, what's that?
Yeah, a voicemail drop. You can, if you've got a high volume of them and you maybe have a call center, you might throw it into a dialing system like a Mojo dialer. a voicemail drop system like Drop Cowboy or a Sly Broadcast, direct mail. This single piece direct mail is pretty interesting, right? And that's something that, most people that are used to doing kind of direct marketing in real estate, you have to put together a list. You need 500 and then you send a piece of direct mail, right? There's a lot of power though in this one-off direct mail stuff. So you set up these lists, a new one gets added, boom, one piece of direct mail gets sent off. And there's companies like Lob and Print Genie, and there's some really nice ones in like the handwritten notes. If you go to Zapier.com, they're a catalog of integrations. So we integrate to Zapier, and then any of the 2,000 integrations Zapier has. But there's companies like Addressable that do really nice handwritten notes for, at your for your target audience. I would think that would probably be the way to go. A little more expensive than a postcard, but a lot more personal.
Yeah, no, I absolutely love it. So all of that now, it's like, how do
email marketing?
Yeah, how do we? So do you, as Property Radar, are you helping to implement that, or is it more so we're setting up the initial to get the data, and then in other words, the done for you service? Do you guys have a service where you're like, hey, we'll help you map this out for this charge to get all of this going? Because to me, I'm going, oh my gosh, I'm like, Sean, I'm so busy already to take on that, or training videos, or
yeah.
How do you do that?
So we get a ton of training videos for sure, right? We will help you set up lists, and we'll provide some assistance with the rest. However, we don't do all those integrations into your sales system and all of that. At the end of the day, we're a SaaS company and not a services company, but we do have partner companies. And we're always looking for more that do that for folks. And there are companies out there that specialize in doing these like Zapier integrations and other types of integrations that can set all those things up for you. And it's, fairly reasonable.
Yeah. By the way, anyone that you want to mention on here that would be that one, that go-to one that you like for that?
I've got some partners who are going to kill me for flubbing this. And I should have a list in front of me, and I'm afraid I'll miss one and make them angry.
We'll put it in the show notes, so don't worry about that. Yeah, we'll put it in the show notes. We'll get it from Sean later. So that's fantastic. So full circle here, Property Radar, we get the initial list going, the criteria, and then we set up the systems to automate, for voice dial or dialing system, or drop a voicemail or single direct, and we set up a Zapier. Now you got all that. So now you have the leads coming in, right? And of course, now you try to close those leads. Where do we take it from there? Besides, now we double our efforts, right? And perhaps, scale to different states or different areas. Right. Walk us through if you're in an entrepreneur's shoes or commercial real estate broker shoes or luxury realtor shoes, what do you do from there?
Yeah, I mean, for most folks, right, bringing those leads in and the rest, now you're going to kick off your normal kind of sales process, whatever that may be. We're really focused on helping you find that. Now, where we will help is when that call comes in, we're going to have a full profile on that property. So you'll see how often they refinance, and all the kind of details, maybe co-owners, other things like that. A lot of folks, especially in the mortgage space like that, because they can kind of pre-qualify the deal and they go, well, hey, what about this loan back here? Is that been paid off? So they don't get surprises during the transaction. A lot of luxury realtors, we're here in Lake Tahoe, and we get people that walk in the door and say, hey, I'd like to go look at this $10 million lakefront house. Well, that's a hobby for a lot of people where they just want to go look at $10 million lakefront houses, right? And they're not really qualified. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, that's a pretty awkward situation for that agent. But if you're the agent, you can go, hey, okay, what's your name? Let me let's talk about this. And where do you live now? You can go search, see what kind of property they have, right? If they've got a $500,000 property in Roseville, you can talk about how they need to be qualified before you can go see the house. If they own a $20 million house free and clear in, Los Altos Hills, right? You can call your husband and say, I don't know if I'm going to be home because I'm going to do whatever it takes to make these clients happy, right? So there's that kind of range, and so being able to pre-qualify now. Can't use this for credit data, right? It's public records data. It's not a credit service, but you can really save yourself a lot of time in kind of pre-qualifying deals. You've got somebody calling, asking about an exchange, talking about their property. You can go in real quickly and just do the smell test, right? Is their property really worth what they think it's worth? Is this going to be worth my time? Is this a good investment? So I think all of those things, that kind of due diligence side of our business, is another big piece.
Excellent. Absolutely love that. Now I'm just curious too, about shifting gears a little bit now, is capital gains tax deferral options, right? And you're a real estate investor yourself, in Silicon Valley, and even luxury homes in Incline Village, Tahoe, all of those types of things. So what would you say is your biggest frustration that you or client or partner has faced, friend or family member, when it comes to capital gains tax deferral options or lack thereof?
Yeah, good question. I think like the trust you're talking about, I'm aware of it. I don't know that I've met many people that are aware of that as an option, right? And even that's a little bit, complicated and stuff. I just actually completed for my mom 6 1031 exchanges.
Wow.
And it sounds like that's a big deal. What it was her family had some property, but her share of it was like 5% per property. So what it was a whole bunch of little tiny transactions that added up to be something, with all the complications of timing and all the rest. So, and of course, the hardest part there was finding, where does that money go? How do I find the property? And having done that a number of times, like I decided we wanted to add multifamily to the mix. And, when I first started, 15 years ago looking for investment properties, I was all about the ROI. Now I'm all about like, how close is it and how good a quality is it, so that I have less management headaches and I could see it, right? Like that's my personal goal. Other people, like, I totally get why they buy stuff off in Timbuktu and it has a fabulous ROI because they have different goals. My personal goal is close and very little work. Right?
100%. Yeah, it's lifestyle, right? At a certain point, you're like I've made enough wealth and I'm comfortable enough, and I want to preserve it versus create it and not take too much risk. And my time is worth more valuable just to manage this well. So we actually just did a deal in Aptos, just south of San Francisco. It's $7.9 million sale right on the beach. They bought it for like $980,000 like 20 plus years ago. And it's appreciated just, up to about 8 million. I have about $1.9 million of debt. So they sell it and they're in their 70s. So like, I don't want a 1031 right now. Like
Right.
I don't want to chase an overpriced property. So they use the Deferred Sales Trust for the first time. But what's the unique thing that most people don't realize, I'm curious if you know about it, but you can go back into real estate whenever you want with the funds in the trust, all tax deferred with the new depreciation schedule. So it actually doesn't take you out of real estate. It just takes you out of real estate until you want to get back in. And so when she understood that, she's like, oh, so I'm not just putting into stocks, bonds, and mutual funds because I don't like that per se. I'm more of a real estate person. I can actually diversify and then redeploy all tax deferred whenever I want when the prices go low. She's like, oh, where do I sign up? And once that clicked, it was kind of a no-brainer. But I'm curious. You said you had heard about the Deferred Sales Trust. Have you actually had somebody do it before? Because there's a lot of misconceptions out there about what it is and what it's not.
I have not personally done one. I am sure we have had hundreds or thousands of customers that have done them. It's not something I've talked about in detail, though, or really dug in on to see if they are or not. So that's a great question, and I don't know. I was just researching them myself fairly recently because of my own desire to downsize and looking for various options and not wanting to leave real estate completely. So kind of checking all of those boxes.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's great. With that being said, Sean, by the way, for those who want to learn more about the deferred sales trust, you can go to capitalgainstaxsolutions.com. That's capitalgainstaxsolutions.com. And if you are a business professional or, luxury realtor, commercial real estate broker, you can go to expertsecrets.com to learn how to use the deferred sales trust to grow your business. That being said, Sean, are you ready for the lightning round?
Okay, hit me.
All right. Knowing what you know now, if you can go back to your 25-year-old self, what's the one golden nugget that you would make sure that you would do?
Make sure that I did at 25. Wow. I do wish, at 25, right? Like I'd not tried to play stocks and just bought some stuff and left it, 25 years later. Really good, high quality, companies for a long time. I would do that, even though I'm mostly invested in real estate, and real estate's been great for me. I think over that long haul, and I probably would have worked harder to buy, even with some leverage, which I would have had to have had at 25, some high quality real estate assets. I did buy a house when I was 18, and that was a disaster. I wouldn't recommend that. I just didn't know where I wanted to be when I was 18, and I moved out. I rented it out. I didn't know what I was doing. The renters destroyed it. It was a tough slog, but you look at the long-term appreciation of real estate, and at 53, 25, that's a long time. And I think that fully understanding the compounding nature of things at 25, I wish I would have better understood that.
It's a great answer. By the way, my dad, $10,000 Apple stock. So he got the computers. Like, this thing is pretty slick, this, and he had a chance to. He had 10,000. I had 10,000 sitting there. He was making really good money, building all these homes in the '80s, and just doing great. He's like, I had a chance to buy the stock, Apple stock, and he goes, I didn't do it. I just didn't do it. And I'm like, and he goes, I wanted to. I just kind of didn't get around to it. I'm like, oh my gosh, Dad, like, I'm like $10,000 stock, in the '80s, and Apple would have changed a lot of things. But I like the way you said that, not trying to play the stock market, but just buy and hold. Is that a fair summary?
Yeah, for sure. And as you get older, it's like, oh no, I got to make a buck. It's like, no, like just put it in and leave it. Even now, like 20 years from me now, me is going to wish you just bought some stuff and left it and not thought about it ever again. Right.
Sure. Yeah. I hear you. Yeah. I like it.
I'm trying to definitely doing that on the real estate side, finding long-term assets I love.
Love it. What's the one book you've recommended or gifted the most in the past year?
Oh, I'm such a sci-fi guy that unfortunately that's probably where I go. And I do read a fair number of business books. I'm just trying to think of one that I love. I'm going to talk about William Gibson and Snow Crash. If you're into real estate, it's not going to seem like a real estate book at all, but there's some really interesting ideas in there around like burbclaves and basic income and other things that, it's only little tidbits, but if you're thinking, right, it'll make you think.
Awesome.
And it also, I think, the burbclave thing is where suburbs become nation states because the world's just too divided. And you could see kind of with where we are in the world right now, how that was kind of a interesting thought when he wrote it, I think in the 90s.
Fascinating. Favorite leadership quote or theme that you strive to live by?
I think the most important one to me is that change is the only constant. Right. And that all opportunity comes from change. Our customers hate it when we change our app, change our pricing, change anything, but all opportunity comes from change, right? This world this last year has been one of really, a lot of really hard changes. And you can focus on all the things that are hard about it, but you can also focus on all the things that were new opportunities that came about because of it. And I think you'll be a lot happier focusing on the latter.
Yeah, very well said. I love that. What are you curious about right now?
What am I curious about right now? you know, I am spending a lot of time thinking about small businesses and what the state of small business is. And, we had the chief economist of Fannie Mae. We interviewed him recently. And, he said the data set that he'd most like to have is better data on small businesses, openings, closings, et cetera. That data set doesn't really exist. We also interviewed the folks at Fred, who do all the data series for the Federal Reserve, and they also said the same thing. And it's really a tough data set. But I'm curious about how we get better data on small business, because they've clearly been impacted this last year, and we really don't know how much and which ones. And there's a lot of questions there, and I think that's really important for the economy.
Yeah, I can't agree more. Very, very important data, and it would be great to have that. Last question, and then we'll let you go. After all your success, Sean, and the company, and helping countless, I don't know how many, thousands and thousands of people, find good data on propertyradar.com, and to grow their wealth, right, or help other people do the same. How do you stay centered in your values, and how do you stay encouraged to charge forward and reach for new heights?
Yeah, great question. I think that one's it's really challenging, and I think you have to find that thing. I mean, it's what everybody says, right? Find your passion. But I think it also has to be meaningful, right? So helping small business in a world where big business is crushing small business, right? Like that, it's got meaning. I can wake up every day, feel good about it. And, we've got our one little take of how we're doing that with public records and making those accessible to small business and trying to give them a chance to compete. But I do think you have to find something in your work that is meaningful enough that you feel like there's a purpose, purpose-driven life. I know that gets bandied around a lot, but I think there's a lot to be said for feeling like you're here for a reason. It's really, I think that's just a important thing overall.
I think that's beautiful, Sean, and it's a great way to wrap up the interview. For those who want to get in touch with you, what's the best place for them to find you?
I mean, I'm Sean O'Toole on Facebook and LinkedIn, and or Sean P. O'Toole. And so pretty easy to find on both of those. The company is propertyradar.com. We have a community website where people can go and ask questions, community.propertyradar.com. The company is obviously on Facebook and LinkedIn and all of that as well. We've got a great YouTube channel, at Property Radar, with lots of videos and different ways folks use us. And even at Property Radar, we've got a blog, and it's got good stuff like how to find the owner of an LLC and some unique ideas on how to do that that most people haven't yet seen, or that may not be familiar to folks. So a lot of good stuff.
Well, thank you, Sean. I want to thank you for being on the show, sharing a bit about your story, sharing tons of wisdom with us, and giving us some practical guidance on the step-by-step on how to automate and integrate property and data owners. So whether you're a commercial real estate owner, whether you're a luxury realtor, whether you're a broker, on either side, this can help you create and preserve more wealth, or help others do the same. And so I want to encourage you to keep using the gifts you've been given to be a blessing to others, and keep doing what you're doing. And for our listeners, I also want to thank you for listening to another episode of the Capital Gains Tax Solutions podcast, and a special podcast with the Expert CRE Secrets podcast. We believe most high net worth individuals and those who help them, they struggle with clarifying their capital gains tax deferral options. Not having a clear plan is the enemy, and using the Deferred Sales Trust is one of the best ways for you to exit your highly appreciated primary home, investment real estate, cryptocurrency, or any other highly appreciated asset. You can go to capitalgainstaxsolutions.com to learn more about that. We appreciate everybody for being